Hi, it's Psaila here, and I want to welcome you to today's episode. Today we're going to be speaking about how to deal with objections and the importance of obviously dealing with objections in the sales process. Now it's interesting because I believe that literally every human on the face of the planet is already pre-programmed to pretty much say no, doubt themselves in the sales process, or maybe doubt you in the sales process because either A, they're unsure, B, they're maybe a little bit hesitant, or C, they're procrastinators. So I want you to already start thinking about saying that if people are already pre-programmed about not going, saying yes to you pretty much straight up, well, at least you understand the playing field and you're not going to get disappointed. Now, objections are pretty much a part of the sales process. Actually, one of the major components of the sales process. Why? Because objections give you the opportunity to not only position your product in a better frame, your product or service in a better frame, but also give you the ability to make sure they answer all the questions that the client may have around moving forward with the sale from you, or moving forward with maybe the product that you've got online, or service that you may have online. So I want you to think about it that if you consider that literally everybody in the sales process is already hesitant, or maybe they're concerned about going ahead, even if they know that that's the exact purchase that they want to go with, well, at least you're already armed, so you don't think about it as failure if you don't get them over the line. You actually think about it as it's a part of the process, and maybe the first time they're going to say no, that hopefully as we help their needs, deal with their any questions that they may have, address their concerns, then they're able to buy from you. All right, so let's start here. Number one is, what are the 4 or 5 major objections in your niche? So it's really important to understand that in your niche, you've got objections that are specific to that. Now, in your niche, maybe it's, I'd like to take order of this, product, and can I get it, next week? So as an example, if you're somebody in the furniture industry and you sell lounges, usually there's a 6, 8, 12 week process that happens there by the time they build it, all the rest of it. So you need to be ready to deal with that objection, and how do you maneuver around that to make sure that you close the sale. Another one usually is, I really can't afford it at this stage, or it's too expensive, or I don't know if this is going to be right for me, or I need to think about it, or any of these things that come with that. So I want you to I want you to think about studying what your 4 or 5 major objections are going to be in your niche. By the way, there's not 1,000 of them. And the best part about it is that the objections for your client avatar are pretty much the same all the time. Why? Because you already know the product or service that you're selling, and you know exactly what they're buying. So if you start to deal and understand how to get around the 4 or 5 major objections within your niche, well, guess what? It's all good to go. Now, is that going to happen the first time that you do a sales process? Probably not. Is it going to happen maybe 20, 30, 40 times into it? Absolutely so, because then you're already prepared for it. And I suggest that you look at and study material around sales. You look at and say, how do I just deal with these objections? Now, there's so much great information that you can just look up on the net, you're good to go. Or you can, there's so many great sales books that actually talk to you about objections, and then all you have to do is put them into your language, because there's no use reading something out of a book and copying it word for word. I mean, you can, but that sounds a little bit scripted. So you just want to make sure that you're dealing with the objection. Now, with the objection itself, the thing I love about the objection is if a client wasn't interested, by the way, the first thing they'd do is say nothing, shake your hand, or just say bye and walk straight out of the store, or if they're online, they're going to a different website. So I want you to think about it that when people object, it means that they're interested, they just need to know some more information, or they're not ready to make that decision because maybe they're feeling scared or a little bit uncomfortable moving forward, or it's a major decision that they need to check in with somebody else. So in saying that, don't feel like the objection's the end all of it all. In actual fact, it's awesome because it means that they're interested. Remember, if people aren't interested, they don't even engage. So you're already right with the objections, and I just think of it that the objections are awesome, because as soon as I do with the 4 or 5 objections, guess what? I know that the next process is that they're going to say yes and they're going to move forward with me. Yep, good thing. Okay, next thing is, as I said, is objections equals interest. So no objections, no interest, objections, interest. Good thing. Now, the number 3 point here that I want to talk about is bridging the gap. So really all you have to do is to find out, what are the components once you've dealt with those objections? How do I then go to the next level in the sales process? So, and how do I maneuver around them? So if somebody says, as an example, it seems like it's a bit expensive, a great, handling of that objection is, well, expensive compared to what? Can you sort of give me analysis? Well, it's not really the same. They've left out this, and this in the quote that we actually have as standard. Or, depending on are you after quality or are you after just something that's cheap? So, you can move around these objections and then start to bridge the gap. So the bridging the gap is basically dealing with the objections one by one, dealing with them, filtering them down until literally the client says, hey, I'm really comfortable, I feel good to move ahead, we're good to go. And in some cases, the client may say, or the prospect may say, I need to think about it a little bit more. So then you set up your follow-up process and you go from there. Remember, write this down. The fortune is in the follow-up or the follow-through. Sometimes it doesn't happen exactly on that sale. It takes 6 or 7 or 8 steps in order for you to move forward. But once again, it's just a process of handling objections, dealing with their needs, understanding them, and positioning your product that they must have or need to have. Yep, okay. And the last part is how to reframe your objections. So reframing your objections is turning that objection into an advantage. So if somebody says, as an example, I really can't afford that at the moment, you go, really, when you think about it, maybe you can't afford not to have it. And the reason being is you've been in, this level of pain, or you've been in this situation for this time and a long time period. I mean, how much longer are you going to stay in that area? So do you see what I'm looking at doing is I'm reframing the handling of that objection so it works in your sales process and works in your favor. Okay, so let me just go through a summary. So what are the 4 or 5 major objections, maybe 6 or 7 major objections that you need to deal with in your niche? Objections equals interest, it's a good thing. Bridge the gap and narrow the objection gap. And the last one is reframe your objections, so then what you're able to do is turn an objection into a superpower for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm Psaila and I look forward to seeing you on the upside.